Let's fucking go, guys. Carlos Ulberg just knocked out Jiri Prochazka at UFC 327 in Miami, April 11th, 2026. And I could not be more happy. I predicted it. I had been predicting it since the fight was announced. I always said from a long time in Carlos Ulberg's career that the easiest win for him at the top of the division was Jiri Prochazka. He got the fight, and he won the fight. He faced some adversity with the injury, which I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the coping, which has been done by Jiri Prochazka fans in the sort of aftermath of this fight. But Carlos Ulberg got it done, and I'm so fucking happy. I don't have a mic still, but I don't care. This made me unretire. I retired after one video. That video went a little bit too viral, so I had to take a step back from creating. But I'm back now, and I could not be more happy with this result. Carlos Ulberg went out there, and I can't really say he had a great performance, but he showed a lot of heart. People are not giving him enough credit. A lot of people would have quit after that injury, but he didn't. He stayed by himself. He stayed true to himself, and he found the check hook on Jiri Prochazka. But this analogy that I'm making between this victory from Carlos Ulberg is not only for comedic purposes, but it's also a real analogy. By 1877, I'm referring to the Satsuma Rebellion, wherein the samurai were effectively destroyed during the Meiji Restoration, and we saw the end of the samurai class. And I think that we're sort of seeing that now. We're seeing out with the old and in with the new. I know Jiri Prochazka has not been in the UFC for that long, but Jiri Prochazka to me represents a different era of fighter, specifically in the heavier weight classes in the UFC. So I'm a bigger guy. I've competed and trained for a lot of my life at around 80 kilograms, 85 kilograms. So these are the guys that I'm closer to in weight and the middle weights as well. But, these are the guys that I can more easily relate to, especially when I'm heavier. And if you compete at a heavier weight class and you are at a high level in kickboxing, boxing, not so much Muay Thai, but mainly kickboxing and boxing, the reputation that MMA and the UFC has in those circles among those people. And a lot of them are elitists, but there's also some truth to what they're saying. And if you're at the high level, that it's basically street beefs to them. And Jiri Prochazka contributed to that belief, because this is a guy who has very little technical skill, relies on his chin to win fights, gasses people out, throws like a madman, very little fight IQ, and he contributed to the reputation that MMA has in the heavier weight divisions. And that's just the truth. So I'm happy that Carlos Ulberg is here. He's bringing a more technical approach to the light heavyweight division. But he's technical, but he's not boring, which is what I'm going to talk about as well later in this video. I don't think that MMA is going to become boxing. I don't want it to become boxing. I think that MMA will always be more entertaining than boxing, maybe even more entertaining than kickboxing. But we need to bring technicality into the sport, specifically into the higher weight divisions, if we want to be taken seriously. Because right now we're not taken seriously, and I love MMA. And when you tell people, when I tell training partners and stuff that maybe one day I want to transition to MMA, they look at me like, why would you ever do that? You're gonna go fight with I'm not gonna say the word, but it starts with an R. You're gonna fight with those people, guys like Jiri Prochazka, who just run around and jump around and don't have technical aspects to them. So I'm happy that we have a guy like Carlos Ulberg, who has a kickboxing base, who has a boxing base, who competed in kickboxing before, and brings technicality to the light heavyweight division. I'm happy that we have that. Um, and I think that this is the direction that the sport needs to go in. And I'm happy that we're seeing an evolution in the sport of MMA, especially in the higher weight divisions as a bigger guy. I'm happy to see that. And not only am I happy for that because of the fact that we're seeing an evolution, but I've been a fan of Carlos Ulberg for a long time. Since his Dana White Contender Series fight, I remember that Israel Adesanya was in his corner on Instagram and on social media at the time. He was promoting Carlos Ulberg. I was introduced to Carlos Ulberg through Israel Adesanya, who's my favorite fighter of all time. So I knew about Carlos Ulberg even before he was on the Dana White's Contender Series, and he came onto my radar really after his knockout of Tafan Nchukwi. But he is, in my opinion, one of the best light heavyweights in the world. I know he didn't prove it tonight, and there are guys who I think would give him problems, such as Magomed Ankalaev. I would be scared in a fight with Ankalaev. I'm happy that Alex Pereira's not in the division. I think Alex would shred his legs and probably win, but other than Ankalaev, I think that Ulberg can beat almost anybody at the division. I think he's one of the most talented light heavyweights that we've ever seen. He's young in the game. Hopefully he can improve a little bit more, but I'm just so happy that this happened, and this really gives me memories of UFC 287, where Israel Adesanya defeated Alex Pereira in the rematch, and that was also in April, I think, and in Miami. And this reminded me of that because I thought that Ulberg was done. I was very upset because of the fact that I thought that it was going to be over because of a fucking injury, and he wins. But one of the reasons I made this video was to talk about why I think the cope from the Jiri Prochazka fans is going a little bit too far, and they're not giving Ulberg any credit at all, which is just so unfair to him. So that's why I made this video, and that's what I'm going to get into next. I'm going to get into a little bit about the cope of Jiri Prochazka fans. So this is the Dead Sea. I believe it's the saltiest body of water on the planet, or it was. It's a very famous body of water that's very salty. It borders my favorite country, my favorite country in the world, and I'm not talking about Jordan. I need to get views somehow, so I have to appeal to certain people to get my videos on the algorithm. But it borders one of my favorite countries, but unfortunately for Netanyahu, it is no longer the biggest body of water, which is the biggest saltwater body of water, because we're witnessing the formation of the new biggest saltwater ocean, and it's fueled entirely by the tears of these Jiri Prochazka fans. They have been coping all over social media after the loss. They can't take it. They can't take the fact that Jiri Prochazka got knocked out. Immediately after the fight, there's people making excuses. Jiri Prochazka himself made excuses in the ring. Didn't give any credit to Carlos Ulberg. Nobody's been giving any credit to Carlos Ulberg. And I think it's ridiculous. So the most common narrative that you'll see are these people online going like, bro, Jiri literally snatched defeat from the jaws of victory, bro. He snatched defeat from the jaws of victory. This is ridiculous, in my opinion. I definitely think that Jiri would have been on track to win the fight. If it went to the end of the round, I think that they probably would have stopped it, the doctor. So that's true in a way, but I don't understand why people are not giving Carlos Ulberg any credit for hanging in there, for drawing Jiri into range and getting him with the check hook. Literally the perfect execution of his game plan. And I also don't know why Jiri himself and his fans are acting as if Jiri totally threw this away and was just, bro. He let Carlos back into the fight, bro. He could have just stayed at range and was spamming leg kicks. He didn't even attack the leg at all, bro. He could have just stayed at range the whole time. Like, he didn't even need to engage. What if I told you That's exactly what he did. So right here we have Carlos Ulberg injuring his leg. I don't know what it was, but he injures his leg in this exact frame here at 3:08. And right after that happened, Jiri Prochazka looked down on it and he saw Carlos Ulberg slip. And I don't know for sure if he knew that his leg was done, but he definitely wanted to test the water. So he throws a leg kick. And we have the leg kick counter. So this is his first leg kick. Buckles Ulberg. Jiri, by this point, probably knows that there's something going on with his leg. He doesn't know if he caused it. He doesn't know if something got injured. So he tests it again. Throws a second leg kick. Like 5 seconds later. So now the leg kick counter is at 2. Keep in mind that this is more leg kicks than he landed in his entire fight with Jamal Hill. But he's at 2 leg kicks. But to be fair, we don't know for sure if he knows 100% that the leg is injured yet, right? But I would say that he probably knew. Now we know from this moment on at 2 minutes 40 seconds, we know 100% that Jiri Prochazka was aware and cognizant of the injury from Carlos Ulberg. He points down to the ground, he acknowledges it, he does that little autism rage thing, and he has his little freak out, points down to the ground and says, okay, let's fight. And from the way that people are talking online, you would think that Jiri Prochazka pointed down to the ground, stood in the pocket, and just started swinging like Max Holloway at UFC 300. But the thing is, that's not what happened, like, at all. That's not what happened at all in this fight. Carlos Ulberg rushes forward. His forward movement clearly hasn't really been affected by the injury in his right leg, in his rear leg. So he rushes forward, connects a few punches with Jiri. Jiri backs off. And then what is the first thing that he does after pointing to the ground and saying, okay, let's fight. Throws, I shouldn't even say throw, he swings the shit out of a leg kick, misses badly. Like, when I tell you he swung for the fences with this leg kick, he basically made himself do a fucking 360 with this leg kick. So interesting that he points to the ground and then blasts a leg kick at the guy that he knows is injured. But, sure, he was definitely showing mercy, guys. Then, so we're at 3 leg kicks now. The next strike that Jiri throws is another leg kick. Okay? And this is at 2 minutes 25. So he's thrown 2 leg kicks since he pointed down to the ground and said, let's fight. He's thrown 2 leg kicks and has not thrown anything else. I'm not joking. He threw 2 leg kicks and did not throw anything else, yet pointed to the ground. And the way that his fans are describing this fight, you would think that he genuinely pointed to the ground and stood in the pocket and swung. That's not what he did at all. He points to the ground. Carlos Ulberg rushes forward. Jiri Prochazka backs off, throws a leg kick, throws another leg kick, and then throws another leg kick. So since 2 minutes 40, it's now 2 minutes 15. Jiri Prochazka threw 3 leg kicks after pointing down to the ground, literally did not throw anything else. 3 straight leg kicks consecutively. And he threw 2 leg kicks before that as well. So he's thrown 5 leg kicks since Carlos Ulberg's injury. Yet, if you talk to Jiri Prochazka fans, Jiri was showing mercy, bro. He showed him mercy. He made a mistake because he showed him mercy. Yeah, okay. He points to the ground and then starts blasting leg kicks at the guy hopping around on one leg. Definitely very merciful from Jiri Prochazka there. Next, another leg kick. The 6th leg kick of the fight at 2:05, only 10 seconds after the last one. He throws another leg kick. Keep in mind, the only thing that he threw a jab. So since he pointed down to the ground, he threw a jab at distance, which didn't even connect, and he's thrown 4 leg kicks. But sure, He gave Ulberg a chance. He gave Ulberg a chance. He just stood in the pocket with him, bro. Bro, like he threw that fight away. He snatched defeat from the jaws of victory, bro. Sure, right, because throwing 4 leg kicks and 1 jab from distance is characteristic of somebody showing mercy. Okay. Next, the 7th leg kick from Jiri Prochazka at 1 minute 37 seconds. So you're telling me that this is the final leg kick, by the way, but you're telling me that in a span of 85 seconds, from 3 minutes 2 seconds to 1 minute 37 seconds, he threw 7 leg kicks. 1 leg kick every 12 seconds. He points down to the ground, yet literally, I'm not joking, this is not hyperbole. He did not throw anything other than jabs and leg kicks. He stayed at distance the whole time. Why are there people acting as if he stood in the pocket and traded with Ulberg? He didn't do that. This is just cope. They're coping. They're just lying because they're sad that their guy lost. Jiri Prochazka has terrible fucking leg kicks. They were super telegraphed, super slow. Ulberg almost countered one of them. I think it was the 6th leg kick. Ulberg almost countered him. So Jiri Prochazka pretty much threw as many leg kicks as he could have safely. He was not blitzing into the pocket and trading. He stayed at range and threw safe strikes. Why are you acting as if he gave Ulberg a chance, bro? He's so honorable. He came in with the samurai code and he gave Ulberg a chance to win the fight. No, he didn't. He stayed at range like anybody would, and he threw safe strikes. Could he have thrown more leg kicks? Yeah, probably. But the only problem is that Jiri Prochazka is not good at being a technical fighter because he's not very skilled, technically. Sorry, I've always said this, and we've always known this. So if you thought that he was going to pull a technical masterclass out of nowhere, obviously not. But he threw 7 leg kicks. This is more leg kicks than he threw against Jamal Hill. This is around the same amount of leg kicks that he threw against Khalil Roundtree. This is around the same amount of leg kicks that he threw against Alex Pereira in the second fight and in the first fight. Yet we're supposed to believe that this is the merciful Jiri Prochazka throwing 7 leg kicks. 1 leg kick every 12 seconds, because this is definitely characteristic Jiri Prochazka, staying at range, only throwing jabs and leg kicks. This is definitely what he does, right? He was definitely being merciful here. Sure, he could have kept more distance in the last 10 seconds of the fight, but Ulberg looked to be done. So he moves in, he closes the distance, and the first time that Jiri Prochazka stepped into range, Carlos Ulberg put him out with a check hook. And this whole mercy thing, Jiri Prochazka coming into the Octagon interview saying, I lost because I showed him mercy. I lost because of the stupid mercy. I learned my lesson. Why are you lying? You threw 7 leg kicks. You threw a leg kick every 12 seconds. You didn't throw anything other than a jab. Why are you talking like you went out like Max Holloway and stood with Ulberg? You didn't. You stepped into range 1 time and got put out cold. Don't talk like you were so honorable giving Carlos Ulberg his chance to win. You weren't doing that. You weren't doing that. And the amount of Jiri Prochazka fans online who are saying this is, not a valid win, it's a fake win because Jiri, I guess, sold it with his fight IQ or whatever. People are saying that. He really didn't, but, if you want to roll with that, fine. But if this is a fluke, if this is a fake win, then let's talk about some other fake wins in UFC history, some other flukes. This fight, if you're going to say that Carlos Ulberg beating Jiri Prochazka is a fluke, then this is the ultimate fluke. Glover Teixeira was 3 shots away from sending Jiri Prochazka back to Czechia in a casket. Jiri Prochazka was about to be face first on the canvas, snoozing, and Glover decides to jump the stupidest guillotine of all time. Then they make it back up to their feet, and Glover keeps shooting takedowns for no reason. And after one of these takedowns, he gets reversed against the cage and subbed with like 30 seconds left. So Ulberg winning is a fluke. But you didn't see Jiri fans saying to run this one back. You didn't see them calling this a fluke. He was losing 3-1 on the scorecards. He should have gotten finished if Glover Teixeira had a brain. So, are they going to not be hypocritical, and are they going to say that this fight is also a fluke? No, they're not. No, they're not, because they're just salty. It's salt and it's cope from Jiri Prochazka fans. But the reality is that neither of them are flukes. Fighters aren't always going to make the absolute best decisions 100% of the time. When you're talking about high-level striking, again, if you've ever competed in high-level striking, high-level grappling as well, fighting at the high level comes down to taking advantage of mistakes. Finishes almost always come at the back of mistakes, defensive errors, fight IQ mistakes. That's where almost all of the high-level finishes come from. And if you've trained at a high level, you know that. Did Jiri Prochazka probably make a mistake against Carlos Ulberg? Yeah, he probably did. It wasn't as big of a mistake as people say, but he definitely could have stayed more at range. You know, he stepped into range when Ulberg was against the fence, and that was a big mistake. But this is the game about capitalizing on mistakes. Jiri Prochazka capitalized on a mistake from Glover Teixeira. Carlos Ulberg capitalized on a mistake from Jiri Prochazka. They're not flukes. Because capitalizing on mistakes, being able to capitalize on mistakes, is part of what makes you a good fighter. And nobody is giving Carlos Ulberg the respect for that. This moment with Carlos Ulberg knocking out Jiri Prochazka with basically a minute left with a bum leg is one of the greatest moments in UFC history. And I'm not saying that just because I'm a Carlos Ulberg fan. Put your tribalism aside for one moment and enjoy a moment like this. A guy with one leg knocked his opponent out cold. Stiff as a board, worse than Pereira. Yet, nobody online is saying, what a moment, I'm sad for Jiri. It's okay if you're sad for Jiri. I don't even, keep Carlos Ulberg niche, man. I don't want you to be a Carlos Ulberg fan. But if you're going to be sad for Jiri losing, of course that's fine. If your favorite fighter is Jiri, that's fine. If you hate Carlos Ulberg, that's fine. If you're a fucking Ihor Potieria fan, that's fine. And you hate Carlos Ulberg, that's fine. But you should go online and you should not be saying, Bro, Jiri, he only won because Jiri lost the fight, bro. He only won because of Jiri's fight IQ, bro. Run it back, bro. That's such a fluke, bro. Really? You're so tribalistic about these fighters that you can't appreciate an objectively amazing moment? It's insane to me. It's insane to me. And the worst part is that if the roles were reversed, if Jiri Prochazka injured himself and Carlos Ulberg did that shit, you would not be seeing anybody going, bro, Jiri only won because Carlos has no fight IQ. Nobody would be saying that. I'd be willing to bet a lot of money It's because of tribalism. People feel close connections to these fighters, which I understand. But, you know, you have to appreciate great moments. In the aftermath of the Sean Strickland fight, when he beat Israel Adesanya, who's my favorite fighter of all time, I was distraught. But I also took a moment to respect what Sean Strickland had just done, dethroning the long reigning champion who has just come off the greatest win of his career. Sean Strickland as like a plus 400 underdog, winning the fight, knocking Israel Adesanya down in the first round. That was an amazing fight. And I recognize that. I just think that Jiri Prochazka fans should give Carlos Ulberg more credit rather than attributing his win to Jiri making a mistake. Because if you're doing that, then you don't understand combat sports, you're oversimplifying it, and you have no idea what you're talking about. Next, why is there this reputation around Carlos Ulberg that he's a boring fighter? Bro. He's the light heavyweight Leon Edwards, bro. We don't want the light heavyweight Leon Edwards. The light heavyweight Izzy. Like, he's so boring. Look at this record right here. Okay? So, this is his entire UFC career. He hasn't been in the UFC for very long. Came in the Contender Series after a win against I forget his name. He lost to Josh Fremd, Bruno Oliveira, or something like that. A first-round knockout, and Israel Adesanya was in the corner. And that's when I was introduced to Carlos Ulberg. Well, I knew about him before then, but that's when he came onto my radar. His first fight with Kennedy Seppuku won a Fight of the Night bonus. Great fight, back and forth. Carlos is dominating the early fight, and then Kennedy takes over in the later rounds. Fabio Charant, I don't really remember this fight very much. Pretty boring from what I see online, honestly. I didn't really want to watch it because it's irrelevant in 2026. So I didn't watch that one. Tafan Nchukwi, I remember this one very well. I was in Walmart watching this on my phone because we were running errands. And I wasn't actually watching the fight. I was watching, like, waiting for the thing to update online with the result. And then I see that he knocks him out after 1 minute 15 seconds, and I was very excited. And on this same card, we watched Shavkat Rakhmonov and Arman Sarukian against Gamrot at Boston Pizza. I remember this day was a pretty good day because Shavkat won as well. Sort of ruined by Arman getting robbed, but I wasn't as big of an Arman fan back then as I am now. But I was still a fan of him. Next up, we have this fight against. I'm not gonna try to pronounce that name, but I remember this guy. He was on a good run in the UFC. A lot of people said that Carlos Ulberg was going to lose this fight. This was one of those fights where online, most people were saying that Ulberg was going to get fraud checked. This was at the peak of the Adesanya hatred as well. So, a lot of people were kind of cheering for Ulberg to lose because he's kind of grouped in with Israel Adesanya. It's such a strange thing, but, that's the way that they are, UFC fans. They were cheering for Carlos Ulberg to lose. A lot of people said that he would lose to this guy, to Nikolai, because Nikolai at the time was a super durable guy. But this, in my opinion, is one of Carlos Ulberg's best performances, and it was all the way back in 2022. He picked him apart in the fight, landed almost every single strike, like literally an accuracy of like 70-something%. This is one of his best fights in terms of his jab, used it very effectively. The leg kicks were very effective for him. And this Nikolai guy was seen as a guy who was unfinishable. He was a brawler at the time, had some wars in the UFC, beat Kennedy and Nzechukwu, and other guys. I forget who else he beat, but he had a win over Kennedy and Nzechukwu, and he had a lot of wars at the time. And Carlos Ulberg knocked him out stiff, like face planted him down on the canvas. Not a boring fight at all. So right now, there's 3 exciting fights with finishes and 1 boring fight. Next up, You have Ihor Portieria. I mainly remember this one because of the fucking annoying commentary from Dominic Cruz talking about himself the whole time because it was a bad stoppage. But he knocked out Ihor Portieria with a really nice short, I think it was a short left hook. And yeah, took him out as he came in. Got the job done really quickly. I don't know. I don't remember which card this was on. I think this was I think Jailton Almeida versus Derek Lewis, or Jailton Almeida versus Rosenstrike, one of those two. I think it was Rosenstrike because, yeah, I was not in school for the Rosenstrike one. So, yeah. So if that's May 13th, the semester would have been over. So, yeah, it was Jailton Almeida versus Rosenstrike was the card. Not that that's relevant, but then you have Dawoon Jung. Not a good card for me overall. That's 293, but great win against Dawoon Jung. Dawoon Jung, this fight sort of showed us that Carlos Ulberg is not that good at leg kick defense. We also saw that manifest against Volkan Oezdemir. Jan Blachowicz a little bit as well. Carlos Ulberg really does struggle with the leg kicks in a lot of his fights. And he hasn't really improved. But it was a sort of strange stoppage as well. Like, as you can see, it's 4 minutes, 49 seconds in round 3. They, posthumously gave him the submission win because Eugene Behrman, said that he saw Dawoon Jung tap in the corner. I remember that, but that was a forgetful day for me overall. But this is when I started really getting on the hype train of Carlos Ulberg. I was hyped for him before, of course, I was very high on him, but this is when I really started getting high on the hype train. In the next, Alonzo Menifield, this is strange. This is one of those fights where I can't think of an example right now, but the vast majority of the casual audience is choosing one guy, but the hardcores, like the MMA creators, like the MMA gurus, and Bedtime wasn't around back then, but you know what I mean. Those guys were picking Menifield as an underdog because I think he was an underdog. But terrible game plan for Menifield, just rushed in and got immediately taken out. I mean, literally a 12-second knockout. So if we sort of recap these fights up until now, Alonzo Menifield, exciting fight and a finish. Dawoon Jung, exciting fight and a finish. Ihor Portieria, exciting fight and a finish. Nicolay, exciting fight and a finish. Tafon Nchukwi, exciting fight and a finish. Fabio Charant, boring fight. Kenini and Izuchukwu, exciting fight and a finish. So almost every single one of his fights, aside from one, has been good so far. Next fight is Volkan Oezdemir. For some reason, there's a lot of people who they must just not watch. They must have just not watched this fight because this was a good fight. They just think it was boring because it went to a decision. But extremely high level fight, very entertaining, very good defensive work from both guys. I struggled with the leg kicks again, like I said, but was able to take control of rounds 2 and 3. I think it could have been 30-27 for Ulberg. I don't know why there were people saying that this was a robbery. This is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen in my life. There's absolutely no argument for a Volkan Oezdemir win, in my opinion. But yeah, good pace, high volume fight. So again, another non-boring fight. Now this is where I have to acknowledge it. This is a terrible, boring fight. I love Jan Blachowicz. But you have to admit this was always going to be boring. These are two guys with really good defense and counter-striking. This fight was always going to look like that. There's a reason why Pereira also had a stinker against Blachowicz. And it's a hard fight to score. I think that Ulberg won it. But as I said, I really like Jan Blachowicz, so I felt for him in this fight. But I think sometimes you should sort of avoid being a little bit too precise and nerdy with the scoring. You should be a little bit more objective sometimes. I think Ulberg outlanded him in rounds 2 and 3, and it was close in round 1. I think that sometimes people are a little bit too nerdy with it. They slow it down, they zoom it in, and they say, well, if you really analyze it, Ulberg's head snapped back 2 more millimeters from this Jan Blachowicz jab, which means that he actually had the most consequential shot of the round. You really, I think in a pure striking fight, if a guy is leading in the numbers and the statistics and there are no knockdowns and no huge strikes, it should just go to the guy with more volume. That's just my opinion. And as I said, I like Yan, so I felt bad for him in that fight. And he's really good at 4 years old. Dominic Reyes, we all saw this masterclass, knocked him out in the first round. And then Jiri Prochazka was chewing up his legs, landed a good counter shot as Jiri came in. Then he popped his leg out, was landing good shots as he was coming forward. Like Ulberg was landing good on Jiri, despite the leg kicks, even after the injury. And then, of course, knocked him out against the fence. So if you see here, there's only 2 boring fights in his whole career, one of which was in 2022. Every other fight is entertaining. So why does he have this reputation of being boring? Who knows? Sometimes UFC fans, they just like to make things up. It's sometimes I call it the Movsar-Evloev effect. Somebody gets this reputation of being super boring, despite the fact that they're really not boring at all, because Movsar-Evloev is the exact same way. He's not a boring fighter, but for some reason everybody kind of thinks that he is. I understand that Carlos Ulberg's not the most entertaining guy, like as in terms of his personality, but he's a cool guy if you follow him on Instagram. I've followed him on Instagram for a very long time. So he's a chill guy on Instagram, but I understand that he's not the most entertaining guy of all time on the mic, but he delivers in his fights, and that's all I care about. So yeah, Carlos Ulberg's not boring. As I said, well, I feel like I'll talk a little bit more about Ulberg. As I said, I'm a huge Ulberg fan. I've been an Ulberg fan since Israel Adesanya introduced me to him in like 2021. I'm sad that Carlos Ulberg and Israel Adesanya are not on good terms anymore. I don't know why. I'm not going to get too parasocial with it. I'm not going to hate Carlos Ulberg because Israel Adesanya doesn't like him. My favorite fighter doesn't like Ulberg, so I'm not going to like Ulberg. Ulberg is one of my favorite fighters, and I feel in a way not proud because, again, that's like getting into parasocial territory, but I'm happy that a guy that I believed in from the beginning did what I thought he was going to be able to do. And this is different from Taira. I mean, I absolutely think that Tatsuro Taira was going to choke out Joshua Van. He is going to choke out Joshua Van. Joshua Can was able to delay his execution by a month. Unfortunately, this would have been the greatest night of my life if both of those fights would have been on this card. But it's okay. But yeah, Carlos Ulberg gets a great win. But as I was saying, I feel happier. I would probably feel happier with Carlos Ulberg winning the belt than Tatsuro Taira because there were many times where it felt like I was the only fan of Carlos Ulberg online. Whereas a lot of people liked Tatsuro Taira. I picked Ulberg even despite the fact that he was an underdog in a lot of his fights. I think he was an underdog against Blachowicz, underdog against Reyes, underdog against Jiri. No, pick him against Jiri, but community underdog against Jiri, and pretty sure community underdog against Ozdemir as well. So, yeah. Carlos Ulberg, I'm a huge fan of him. I don't like the fact that there's all of a sudden a whole bunch of Ulberg fans around. I mean, I'm happy that he's getting attention, and of course I want him to be successful, but I don't like how fickle the UFC community is, that they move on from people so quickly, and they just become fans of people at the drop of a dime. I think that that's really dumb. But yeah, just to speak about a little bit of the rest of the card, Paulo Costa got an insane win against Azamat Murzakanov. I predicted that. I predicted that Paulo Costa would win. He looked very good body kicks, head kick finish. Azamat Murzakanov, the commentary team kept talking about how he probably injured his arm. I didn't see anything about that, but Paulo Costa looked very good. If they do I really hope that they do Paulo Costa versus Ulberg, if Ulberg is okay, because I think that Ulberg would win that easily. I like Paulo Costa, but in many ways, I don't think that this move to light heavyweight is as good as some people are making it seem. In this fight, Paulo Costa's biggest weakness was not really relevant. And his biggest weakness is the fact that he's got those short arms, uh, which made him very vulnerable to, which made him pretty much unable to use a jab or to utilize straights effectively. And that's not really relevant in a fight against Azamat Mirzakhanov because he's so small for the light heavyweight division. But I think against somebody like Ulberg, who would almost certainly have the reach advantage, I think that Paulo Costa would get torn apart. But good for Paulo Costa, man. And it makes Israel Adesanya's win over him age better. Because I truly do think that Paulo Costa before Israel Adesanya was a different fighter than he was against Sean Strickland and Rob Whittaker. Josh Hokett. Listen, I'm not a big fan of the cringe stuff. Not a big fan of his views, but man, this is one of the greatest fights I've ever seen, and you have to give him credit. And I'm happy that he's in the light heavyweight division, in the heavyweight division, and I'm happy that he won this fight because we need this at heavyweight. Guys like Vitor Petrino, I think that Vitor Petrino is one of the best heavyweight prospects. He's in the banner for a reason, but we need these guys to kick some of these old guys out of heavyweight. You know, Curtis Blades is a guy who, frankly, is kind of, I think he's over the hill, and I think we need to get these younger guys in here. And Josh Hokett, he brought eyes onto it. People really wanted Josh Hokett to get beaten up, and he brought eyes to the sport with the antics that he was doing. So he's going to be a star, I think, in my opinion. And I picked Josh Hokett to win as well, so I was happy. And then Mateusz Gamrot beats Esteban Ribovics. I knew that this was going to happen. I actually think that Ludovic Klein did better than... I actually think that Ludovic Klein did better in his fight than in his fight with... God, I'm fucking freezing up. I think that Ludovic Klein did better in his fight with Mateusz Gamrot than Esteban Ribovics did. You know, so... How good is Ludovic Klein? I'm actually a fan of Ludovic Klein. I think he's cool. He's a cool guy, and I think that he could be a top 15 guy, top 10 guy if he improves certain aspects of his game. But this is the sort of situation that we're in with the light heavyweight division. You know, it's really, really tough for these guys to dethrone the current old, like the unks at lightweight. I don't know if I said light heavyweight. It's very difficult for them to dethrone the unks at lightweight. You know? Because right now at lightweight you have... The only one who's been able to break through has been Arman. Other than that, we saw Benoit Saint-Denis get floored by Dustin Poirier. He's on a good run now, but it was not looking good at first. We saw Rafael Fiziev get handled by Justin Gaethje. We saw Paddy Pimblett get handled by Justin Gaethje. We just saw Chris Duncan lose to Renato Moicano, and we just saw Esteban Ribovics lose to Mateusz Gamrot. So the current situation at lightweight is that these contenders are not good enough to beat these older contenders. And the only exception is Arman. So lightweight is a very interesting division right now because of that. We're not seeing a changeover in the guard. The old guard is winning almost every fight. Although I do think that Quillan Salkild's going to beat Beneil Dariush, but that's kind of a write-off, let's be honest. And then last thing about the card that I'm going to talk about is Cub Swanson. Cub Swanson is a legend, man. So many amazing fights, like the Doo Ho Choi fight. I'm not going to pretend like I was around for the WEC days. I started watching around 2015. But, you know, it's sad because this is the last WEC fighter to be in the UFC. I'm pretty sure after Cub has retired, there's no more of them, you know, and as I said, I'm not going to pretend to be a hardcore and say, you know, I was around for the WGC, bro. WEC was better than UFC. I'm not going to say that, but, you know, Anthony Pettis, Cerrone, Condit, Chael, Aldo, Faber, Benson Henderson, Cub Swanson, Korean Zombie, DJ, uh, Johnny Hendricks. Like so many amazing fighters came from the WEC, and it's sad to see that era's gone. They're all gone now, and that did make me kind of sad because you know at the end of the day, the legends are leaving. But Cub Swanson is a legend of the UFC, man. So many insane moments, as I said, like the Doo Ho Choi fight in this picture. That's in the Hall of Fame. The Stevens fight was insane. The Elkins KO, that spin kick, the Aldo flying knee, because it takes two to create a moment. So he got like flying kneed out cold by Jose Aldo in like 15 seconds. That's a moment. You know, was never really a favorite to win the title, but perpetually in the top part of that division, and was a super high level fighter. You know, and it was kind of like one of the highest level gatekeepers in the sport. Like if you were gonna beat Cub Swanson, there was a time where if you beat Cub Swanson, you were gonna challenge for the title. Uh, Around the time where he was losing to guys like Frankie Edgar and Max Holloway and guys like that. That was when he was at the peak of his powers, and he was really, really good, man. So Cub Swanson is a legend of the UFC, and I'm happy that he got such a good tribute. The KO over Billy Quarantillo on that Buckley card as well. Amazing KO. I'm so happy that he got his moment. I love Cub Swanson, and yeah. Um, so yeah, that's basically everything for the UFC card. I picked Randy Brown against Kevin Holland. That was dead fucking wrong. Randy Brown still doesn't know how to check a leg kick apparently. Um, what else? Lupe Godinez gets fraud checked, as I said. Kelvin Gastelum should fuck off now. That was so fucking infuriating because not only did I pick Kelvin Gastelum as a high confidence pick, but dude, I don't want Vicente Luque to fight anymore because I have a bad feeling that they're going to feed him to a prospect and he's going to get shinned out cold. So I'm really sad that he won. Like, even though I like Vicente Luque, I'm really sad he won because I don't think he should be even getting cleared to fight anymore after that brain injury that he had, that brain bleed. But, he won. So he's definitely going to fight again. And I just hope they don't give him a killer. Ryzen also happened. Ryzen Landmark 13. Of course, as a Kyrgyz, seeing Shea Delayev win. Great fight. I think, honestly, Shedalayev is not my favorite Kyrgyz prospect. I don't think that he's the best one. I think that Akbar Abdullayev and Erskeli Duishiv from one championship are both better, especially Abdullayev. I think Abdullayev is like championship level right now. So, go and research Akbar Abdullayev and Duishiv as well. But Shedalayev won. He represents the Kyrgyz Republic, so I suppose he's Kyrgyz, but I think he's like Tajik ethnically, but whatever it is, what it is. Danny Sabatello won, unfortunately. Yeah. I don't think anybody likes Danny Sabatello, but we have to acknowledge now that he is pretty good. That was a good performance. Yoshinori Hori didn't look too good against Patricky Pitbull, split decision. Aziz Bektemirov, the brother of Ramazan Bektemirov, who I think is one of the best prospects at flyweight, won in the second round via uppercut KO. Keep your eye on Azizbek Temirov, the brother of Ramazan Temirov. Who else? Tayo Asahisa. That was a kickboxing fight, but obviously I love kickboxing. And, man, I think that Tayo Asahisa is pretty good because, I mean, his only real loss recently was to Yuki Yoza, who I think is going to beat Jonathan Haggerty for the title. So in one championship. So Tayo Asahisa is looking very good, and that loss was a long time ago as well. So I think that he could go far in kickboxing. But that's everything. Good Ryzen card, but it was overshadowed by UFC. One of the few times I think UFC beat Ryzen in terms of entertainment. And that's all I wanted to talk about Let's go, Carlos Ulberg. And yeah, goodbye. Hopefully, I'll have a mic by the next video. Thank you for watching.